If I reflect back on my life a decade or two ago, I was living a life that had stopped fitting. I knew something was off, I just couldn't see it clearly, and honestly, I probably didn't want to. When you're in the middle of something like that, it's hard to be objective. Now, looking back, the signs were there long before I finally did anything about it. I do think if I had been able to name what I was experiencing and been able to realize all of this added up into a pattern, I probably would have moved a lot sooner. So, in order to help somebody else out there not make the same mistakes I made, I decided to put together this list, 6 signs based on my own experience that something significant might be out of alignment in your life. Signs that a midlife reckoning may be brewing. And this isn't specifically about marriage or career, but it could be about either of those. It could also be about a role you've been playing for so long that it doesn't even feel like you anymore. But whatever the situation, the internal experience tends to feel pretty similar. And I'll say up front, as always, take what applies to you and leave what doesn't. This won't all fit everybody. These are my observations from my own life. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Jeff. If you're living out of alignment, here are 6 signs you might start to notice. Number 1, your tolerance starts disappearing. Things you endured for years suddenly feel almost impossible to tolerate. You used to grin and bear it. Now you're digging your heels in and feeling increasingly resentful. If the problem is a relationship, then all of the little habits that person has that might have been endearing early on just become annoying. Any hint of disrespect hits you harder. You just don't want to be around them. You find excuses to run more errands, take the long way home, spend more time in the garage tinkering. Now, if it's your job, you probably find the Sunday night dread getting worse. You're not worried about work most likely because you're probably good at it at this point. It's just more painful to go have to do it again. And regardless of whatever part of your life isn't working right now, you start to notice that the irritation isn't staying contained to just that one thing anymore. You may find yourself getting irritated at the smallest things that have nothing to do with the real source of your frustration. Number 2, you spend more time fantasizing about alternate versions of your life. In fact, you might spend more time imagining alternate versions of your life than fully participating in the one you actually have. You might imagine being with someone you're really connected with instead of someone who judges you or doesn't really know you or get you. Or you might fantasize about what it's like to have your own business where you're in charge, where you're not there to fulfill someone else's agenda, waste time in meetings and trainings that don't solve any problems. And it's not that you're daydreaming more than other people, it's that the contrast between the life you're imagining and the life you're living keeps getting harder to ignore. Number 3, you find yourself feeling envious of those who have solved something you're struggling with. You may find yourself unusually affected by people who made changes you secretly wish you'd make. And I remember at one point in my life years ago, noticing couples who seemed connected with each other and having fun together, holding hands and looking at each other and laughing together. I felt a bit envious about that. I wanted that and I didn't have that at the time. Or you see people who seem to have a career that's a lot more appealing than yours. A job with great hours and less stress, or maybe is more interesting or has more meaning to it. Or people who have built up their own business. Or maybe it's people who have retired. Number 4, the future stops feeling like a solution. A lot of the time, I think we convince ourselves that if we just give a situation some more time, things will probably get better. Or there will be a transition in the future that will make things better, a transition that we're anticipating. So maybe you've spent years telling yourself that things will get better when the kids are grown, when work settles down, when you finally have some more time. But somewhere along the way, you stopped believing it. The future used to feel like an exit. Now it just feels like more of the same. You imagine yourself with the same person or in the same job another 5, 10 years down the road, and just the thought of that becomes painful and overwhelming. You know that more time isn't going to solve the problem. Number 5, distraction becomes more appealing. Distraction, as we all know, is a major problem for most of us today. But if you're living a misaligned life, you may find that you're increasingly drawn to distraction because silence leaves you alone with questions you really don't want to look at. You don't want to answer them. So more time doom scrolling, watching Netflix, drinking, or whatever your distracted thing is. They don't make you happy when you do them, but for just a moment, they allow you not to think about what you already know. Number 6, relief no longer lasts. If we've been working too much or maybe around another person too much, a lot of times all we need is a short break and we can reset, right? But if you're dealing with some type of long-term misalignment that's wearing on your soul, you'll probably notice that temporary escapes no longer restore you. Weekends, vacations, hobbies, fantasies about retirement, the relief fades almost immediately. Cutting back to part-time work, for example, if work is the issue, might give you relief for a while, but then you realize that it's the thing itself and not the time spent doing it that's really the problem. And that's when you start realizing the problem isn't that you need a break from it. The problem is that you have to keep going back to it. The interesting thing about a reckoning is that it doesn't start when you make a change. It starts when you can no longer pretend you don't see what's right in front of you. Now, whether you do anything about it or not is a separate question. But seeing it clearly is usually where it begins. Be sure to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. I appreciate you watching. Have a great day.